a prime example of people that's puppet masters trying to control the narrative.
It now appears if she wants to run for supervisor again, it will have to be
take a nosedive into chaos. The allegations of extravagant spending on frivolous projects and personal luxuries have sparked outrage among the residents of Dalton, turning public sentiment against the once revered leader. Her administration, once a symbol of bold ambition, now faces relentless scrutiny as investigations reveal a troubling pattern of mismanagement and questionable priorities. Supporters who once championed her vision are now grappling with disillusionment, struggling to reconcile their loyalty with the mounting evidence of her failure. As her political empire crumbles, the town braces for the impact of her fall from grace, unsure of what lies ahead, certain that the ride is far from over. Two significant blows to H's political career came during a historic and fiercely contested Democratic caucus in Foreign Township. For the first time in decades, the party opted for a caucus instead of a primary election to select its nominees, raising the stakes considerably. Henyard, who serves as both the supervisor of Foreign Township and the mayor of Dalton, was vying for a spot on the 2024 ballot. However, her ambitions were abruptly thwarted when her candidacy was declared invalid. The Democratic Committee of Foreign Township, led by State Senator Napoleon Harris, who also represents many residents of Dalton, gathered at the Homewood Flossmoor Park District Auditorium for the high-stakes showdown. Braving the cold, attendees packed the venue to witness the political drama unfold. Harris, running for township supervisor, emerged triumphant, securing the Democratic nomination and effectively ousting Henyard from the race. In a moment that could only be described as the ultimate political mic drop, the crowd responded to Harris's victory announcement with cheers and a playful farewell kiss rather than the traditional applause. The spectacle marked a dramatic and public end to Henyard's bid, leaving her political future in serious doubt.
Try to caucus works right here in Thornton Township. You could also say that she flunked out because her name is not apparent.
With an abrupt turn of events and a few of her most devoted supporters by her side, Tiffany Henyard stormed out of the auditorium, her voice echoing with accusations of corruption and illegality. She specifically called out State Senator Napoleon Harris, accusing him of conducting an unfair and flawed process. "You didn't run any of this the right way. Legally," she shouted, her fiery defiance refusing to waver despite the criticisms surrounding her. Henyard's outburst was a declaration of defiance against her detractors, but it could not change the outcome. Her tenure as the Democratic nominee for Foreign Township supervisor was effectively over following the contentious caucus vote, which many described as chaotic but decisive. Her name was officially removed from the Democratic ballot, a public and symbolic blow that underscored her increasingly shaky hold on power. An 11th-hour decision to pivot and run as an independent candidate would not only challenge her political identity, but also risk further dividing her already fractured base. Yet for someone like Henyard, whose political career has been built on controversy and resilience, giving up seemed unthinkable. Her supporters rallied around her, echoing claims of voter suppression and citing what they described as abrupt and arbitrary rule changes designed to disqualify her. Despite the uproar, the caucus organizers, led by Harris and his legal team, maintained that the procedure was conducted openly and in full compliance with Illinois law. For Henyard, however, this defeat was more than a political setback. It was a public humiliation that solidified her reputation as a polarizing figure in Illinois politics. As she walked out of the auditorium that day, the lines for her next battle were already being drawn. Her defiance made one thing clear: for better or worse, the fight was far from over.
It's the right way! Illegal!
A wave of dissatisfaction swept through the community after Tiffany Henyard's humiliating political defeat, echoing loudly across online platforms and among her constituents. For many, this was not just a political setback, but a public unraveling of Henyard's authority and credibility. Critics quickly framed her loss as yet another glaring example of her leadership failures, and a clear indication that she was losing her grip on power. The mood in the community was one of collective frustration. Residents, weary of her contentious tenure, began openly voicing their displeasure. One particularly vocal neighbor took to social media, urging others to rally together and decisively vote her out in future elections to ensure the results were indisputable and manipulation-proof. This rallying cry struck a chord with the public's growing conviction that Henyard's leadership was not only ineffective, but actively harmful to the community. Calls for change resonated alongside a shared belief that power and corruption often go hand in hand. One online commentator succinctly captured this sentiment: the more power someone has, the more corrupt they become. This statement encapsulated the concerns of many locals, who saw Henyard as the epitome of unchecked power, spiraling out of control. Her leadership, once seen as bold, had come to symbolize political arrogance and a declining trust in government. Henyard's failure to acknowledge her mistakes only deepened public suspicion. What had once been perceived as confidence now appeared as arrogance. Her defeat further exposed the growing divide between her and the electorate, who felt increasingly alienated and disillusioned by her actions. Rather than addressing the community's concerns or attempting to rebuild trust, Henyard's defiant stance seemed to amplify the rift. For many, her leadership had become a cautionary tale of self-centered governance, disconnected from the needs of her constituents. Each new accusation and criticism added to the mounting chorus of discontent, painting a picture of a leader out of touch with her community. The public's attitude shifted decisively, with a renewed resolve to reclaim their voice in the face of perceived betrayal. This collective discontent marked a turning point. The gap between Henyard and her constituents had never been wider, and her political future had never seemed more uncertain.
Change at the top in South Suburban Dalton.
Of course, we are talking about Mayor
To truly understand Tiffany Henyard's fall from grace, one must first consider her rapid ascent and the carefully crafted image she projected as a rising political star. Once celebrated as a visionary leader, Henyard positioned herself as an untouchable super-mayor, skillfully juggling the powerful roles of Mayor of Dalton and Supervisor of Torrin Township. This dual authority bolstered her reputation and provided her with a commanding platform. However, her carefully constructed pedestal soon began to crumble under the weight of controversy. Critics were quick to seize on her missteps, with the most damaging revelations exposing her alleged misuse of public funds. Reports surfaced that Henyard had charged taxpayers thousands of dollars for indulgent expenses, including lavish dinners, luxury vacations, and personal beauty treatments. The stark contrast between her extravagant lifestyle and the financial hardships faced by her community fueled public outrage. One particularly egregious example, cited in reports, involved Henyard allegedly spending $33,000 on Amazon in a single day, an expense that seemed especially tone-deaf in a community where the median household income is only a fraction of that amount. It's repulsive that she's living like a queen while we're struggling to get by, one furious community member remarked. These revelations shattered the trust that many residents had placed in her leadership, fostering a growing sense of disillusionment and betrayal. Henyard's financial decisions were seen as a gross disconnect from the realities of her constituents, many of whom were struggling to make ends meet. Tiam. Her critics painted a damning picture of hypocrisy and corruption at the heart of her leadership, with her once shining image as a champion for the people replaced by that of a self-serving politician prioritizing personal comfort over public welfare. As her spending scandals came to light, the erosion of her support base accelerated. Critics grew more vocal, and calls for accountability became louder. The very foundation of her political career, built on promises of integrity and service, began to collapse. Henyard's failure to acknowledge or address these controversies only deepened public suspicion. What was once perceived as confidence now seemed like arrogance, and her increasing defiance served only to widen the rift between her and her constituents. Her traumatic political defeat marked a turning point, further highlighting the divide between Henyard and an electorate that felt alienated and disillusioned by her actions. Rather than uniting the community or addressing their concerns, her leadership had come to symbolize the dangers of political arrogance and unchecked power. Each new criticism and accusation added to the mounting chorus of discontent, presenting an image of a leader disconnected from the struggles of her constituents. For many, Henyard's lavish spending and refusal to take responsibility epitomized the betrayal of public trust. This collective outrage marked a pivotal moment, as residents resolved to reclaim their voice and demand accountability. Distance between Henyard and her constituents had never been greater, and her political future had never seemed more uncertain. What had once been a promising career now stood as a cautionary tale of ambition overshadowed by arrogance, leaving her community at a breaking point and her legacy in tatters.